Dr. Brian Phillips, and we will be interviewing him. Today we are interviewing on behalf of our Business Communication 1 class, and we want to talk about cross communication in culture, and obviously how it affects American culture and Thai culture, and basically about culture shock. So let's look into your values first. For you, Brian Phillips, in your life, what is an important goal?
Help me out. Be more specific.
Important goal, family, friends, you know.
Probably to help the community or help out different places.
Like
to be a positive influence.
Like
wherever I'm
Amnesty
at.
International.
To be a positive influence wherever I'm at. Usually I try to help out. I try to.
Like you're a teacher, you want to be a good influence to your students.
Students make a good example. Right now I got a couple of students that have graduated and they're going on to go do their studies, and I'd like to help them the next step up, go to a very good university and go to the next phase of life. Or there's a conference in about 2 weeks. I went ahead and volunteered myself to help out, write the script and write up different ideas and stuff.
What is more important to you, the past, present, or future?
Future.
The future. And would you say that is because of how you've been brought up?
Not necessarily. The past is kind of interesting, but it's pretty well already set. So although it has effect to what you do now or what's happening in the future, it's already set. So you really can't change it that much. The thing that you can focus on is the future. And how you can shape it.
Would you say Thai people look at the present or the future?
Oh, present. Definitely.
Where would you say you get your values from? School or family?
Probably family more. Honestly, I don't. Growing up, I never really believed in education. Most everything I learned myself. A lot of the formal education was extremely boring, or it was stupid, or it was well done, or you had teachers that taught you the wrong thing. So most of my education, most of the things I know is through reading or finding myself.
Is education one of your values?
It's sort of strange because I work in education, but I don't really believe in it. I'm not certain why students come and study here, because I think they actually can learn a lot better on their own and through their own experiences, their own values.
I mean, like today with internet and stuff like that, right?
Yes. I think sometimes one of the issues is if the student's learning on their own, they have a problem finding a focus or finding a goal or finding a mission of why they're learning something. So sometimes it's hard for them to focus on one area or one issue and learn something. That's why a lot of times it's better, like in a class or such, that they have a project. Because if you have a project, you have something to accomplish, and along the ways where you're accomplishing it.
Now, as I remember learning with you, you don't teach like...
Sure, blame me.
You don't teach like most other teachers. You're more fun and stuff like that.
I apologize in advance. I'll do better, I promise.
Would you prefer to work individually or as a group?
You mean teaching as individually or teaching as a group?
How do you like to work?
I like teaching big classes. I like big groups. You mean for working it's a bit different. For working I like to do individual. It's kind of nice to be able to control everything that's going on in my environment. But for teaching I like to teach to a really, really, really big group. I like 100 students. There's a lot of good dynamics that happens. So it's a little bit different. I really hate small classes, because you'll have like 3 students and then 2 of them will just sit there, make faces at you like this. So I like about a class about 20 to about 40 or so. But for working, it's a lot more difficult because you have to coordinate your efforts. You have to get everybody to agree to follow you or agree to do the same thing all the time.
My teacher told me that like a lot of Thai people are more dependent and like to work as a group, but Americans, they like to work individually. Would you agree with that?
Not necessarily. There's actually research, I forgot his name, Hofstede, had a really good survey on all of the people that worked in IBM. Thai people tend to prefer working in groups more, but they also are very individualistic as well. So I don't think it's as simple as that. Some other cultures, like in Japan, they tend to work better as a group and they tend to do everything as a group. But I think Thai is actually a very nice mix of being able to get along well in a group, but then also take initiative and do their own work. So I think it's a nice mix. I think Americans are probably the best example of too much individual. It's really hard to get Americans to work together as a group.
How do you define success?
I'm not sure.
So
Some of the visible things like being rich or some of that, or being famous. Some of the typical measurements of success are just kind of temporary. It's quite typical for somebody to be rich but then go back down to being quite poor and quite broke. It's quite typical for somebody to be extremely famous but then at the same time become infamous. It's difficult to kind of set one standard or one goal for success. For me, it's more important probably to be more happy with myself and be more satisfied with what I'm doing or what I'm thinking or what I'm doing. For me, I like to learn and know something new all the time. So if I'm doing the same thing or I'm doing the same routine work, I'm not happy about it. Right? I'm always looking for something brand new.
Do you consider living with your parents and taking care of them when you're older one of your values?
No. It's one of the problems I have living in Thailand because it's my mother already died last year, but my father he's getting older and older and older. But because of where I'm at, it's impossible for me to really kind of take care of him or even sort of influence how he's taken care of right now. So it's a concern or a worry, but yeah, it's part of the values in the U.S. that's not really high on the list. And not that many people think about it until it comes to that time or such. Yeah, I don't know what to do. I have no way to really control it or what's going on.
And what do you think of Thai culture, how they take care of their guys?
I like it a lot. Yeah, I think it's a much better way to kind of take care of the older. What I really like about the Thai style is actually they get the grandchildren and great-grandchildren very involved with the grandparents. And there's a good interaction there that if they were off by themselves like it is in the U.S. where you're separate, you're alone by yourself, you don't see your kids or your grandkids or your great-grandkids that much. So I think the mix is actually healthier for both the younger generation and the older generation.
I once heard that in America, most people who get dogs are old people because they're very lonely. Would you agree with that?
Depends where there's nothing simple in the U.S. There's so many different cultures and different areas and different regions and different perspectives. I think a lot of people in the U.S. live in the city, so it's difficult to take care of an animal right now. So I think cats are probably more popular now. I think that would be my guess.
Do you think a Thai person's value and your values vary?
Probably. I think my values and a typical American values would vary quite a lot.
Why would you say that? Why would you say that?
I've always been different. I've always thought different. I've always kind of argued with the norms or always kind of went against. I never followed anything everybody said. Sometimes some of the Thai norms it's kind of difficult to tell because on the outward side you're supposed to kind of follow what everybody's thinking, kind of nod your head, but in actuality Thai are very, very individualistic and they have their own ideals and they have their own concepts and just kind of quiet about talking to other people. Some of our students, like you guys, are a little bit better about speaking out about it, but I think mostly they just kind of tuck it away and just kind of can think of their own.
Do you consider an uneducated person unsuccessful?
No. For me, uneducated means the behavior, how they act in public, or how they. I always hate to talk about smoking, but my famous one is where you got somebody walking around smoking. It shows absolutely a lack of education or a lack of consciousness. Even for something like smoking, you should be able to know how to do it, when, where, what the appropriate time is, what the appropriate place is. And I think there's a lot of good examples in Thailand and other countries as well. But, some people that have quite a high status that show obviously that they don't have any sort of education or any sort of background. Our old dean used to focus very much on table manners, and it became sort of a, it's too much, but at the same time, the way that people eat or the way they take care of little details shows how much concern they put behind it and how much thought there is behind it. Does that answer it fairly completely or no?
Yeah. The next question is, I'm sure someone has asked this to you before, but if you had to choose between money or
I love my wife. I would not choose different.
What would you choose and why?
Which one?
Money or love?
Money or love? Well, I think I've obviously chosen love, not money. Obviously not being rich and dead.
And would you say that's a culture thing or is it more individual?
I think it's very individualistic.
Do you think values in the workplace for both Thailand and America is the same?
Oh, definitely different. Thais tend to be much more social, much more interactive, much more understanding of the complexities of working with other people. Americans tend to be kind of like a little bit self-centered and a little bit focused on themselves. It's okay to throw a fit and be me in an office, but in Thailand, it's not appropriate whatsoever to do that.
And which one do you prefer?
Actually, the Thai way of doing business is quite good in many different aspects. It depends on what you're talking about. If you're talking about business, or if you're talking about education, or if you're talking about meetings, or if you're talking about government, or such. One of my favorite models is actually kind of the Chinese business model. I like it because it's not, Thais may be a little bit too discreet. What they're saying is not what they're saying sometimes. But the Chinese are actually pretty good about saying, this is what I want from you. And you can be a little bit more honest if you can. In Thai you can't say no. But in China you can pretty much say, what you're saying is absolutely a lie, and get away with it and actually be friends with it. But actually, I like their model quite a lot for business.
For families, do you think that values towards mother and father are the same, or is the mother a higher hierarchy than the father, like in Thai culture?
In Thai culture?
Yeah.
I think mothers tend to have a lot more influence in families, but I think it really depends on the different types of families. There's like two different streams of cultures in Thailand. There's sort of the Thai, like upcountry Thai. In those families, I don't know, I think probably the mother tends to dominate in that one. Then you got kind of a Thai tradition where it's kind of more Chinese Thai. And the dynamics in the families are way different than the regular Thai. In the Chinese Thai, I think the mother probably is a lot more dominated, controls a lot more of the different relationships and what's going on in the family. I think.
Is there a special gesture before you talk to someone that you show to show politeness?
In Thailand or
America?
in the U.S.?
Like in Thailand, it's why.
Oh. If I'm trying to talk to somebody, usually there's, you don't think about it, but usually there's sort of a gesture about, like I want to talk about something private or something. You make sort of a gesture, like you get closer to them and maybe kind of say, come here, or gesture or such. There's really no like hello or something like that. Shaking hands is okay, but shaking hands really doesn't mean much in different situations.
So there's not a special gesture, right? it's more discreet, like whenever it happens?
I think the gesture is actually, if you're trying to talk about something private, is pretty much like come closer to them a little bit. And maybe sort of make sort of a subtle gesture that you want to kind of chat with something private.
Is the same way you talk to your friends and family the same?
It's a little difficult for me because which family?
Your personal family.
Family in the U.S. Tend to be quite abrupt and not very polite. The Thai family, I'm very, very polite because I'll get in big trouble if I'm not. Sometimes, because most of the interactions in Thai, sometimes I might be impolite. Not on purpose, but sometimes I am. I try to be a lot quieter here. With friends, it's way different because I got so many different levels and different areas and different types of friends in different places. Because I got friends from university, I got school friends, I got friends that are younger than me, I got friends that are older than me. That one's quite difficult, that kind of answer. Because there's just so many different levels and different interactions.
How about the way you communicate to your Thai family? Are you more like, are you scared of culture shock? Like whatever you say is wrong? Are you more aware of what you're saying and stuff?
I'm not too worried about saying something wrong because usually it's wrong. It's kind of a given. Usually the issues with communication is barrier because I need to talk to them in Thai. And sometimes my Thai can be quite fluent, but if I haven't spoken for a while or I'm trying to say something complex, I can't figure out how to say it.
How much do you respect your elders?
Which elders?
When you go to school, like the people who are in the older.
I'm usually a bit more polite than most Americans. Somebody that's like a bit elder, like a grandma or a grandpa that's obviously older, I'm always very kind of cautious, and I always. As you know, usually sometimes they're a little bit slow in the way, but I always try to take a breath and try not to be too rude.
Do you think the Thais respect their elders too much?
I think it comes out okay. I think they visibly show respect, but internally maybe not necessarily. But I think the balance between what's inside and what's outside works out well. As you know, the rules in Thailand is if you appear to be polite, or you appear to respect somebody, you respect somebody. It's actually pretty good rules because it's kind of hard to tell what somebody's actually thinking inside.
While dining, is there a certain way you should talk to your peers in American culture? While dining, is there a certain way?
While you're eating?
Yeah.
Actually, I enjoy the interaction in Thailand more. The U.S. Eating's pretty much just do it, get it done. Don't, especially in the workplace where you need to go back and do something. So you just eat, done. 15 minutes, 10 minutes better. Japanese are very similar to that. But I've enjoyed being in Thailand because there's been some times where you have dinner at 6. Friends will start joining at 6:15, 6:30, 6:45, and then about 7:30 you'll have different friends that come. So it's a lot more social, a lot more interactive. Even if the friends are American, but the atmosphere is much more pleasant, a lot more social.
For Thais, I personally feel like it's eating is like the sacred time. It's the time that they take seriously. Like when they greet each other, they will say "Have you eaten?" Something like that. Are you used to that, or do you find that weird, that kind of greeting?
It's okay now. In that manner, I'm probably more Thai than I'm American right now. For a long time, my job was to eat with visitors. I think in Thailand, it's kind of a joke because I think I met with somebody from a group from Norway or Sweden, I forgot which one. And it was just about before lunch, and they kept saying, "Let's meet and break into groups, and we can talk about work, and then we can eat lunch later." And I kept telling them, "Let's go to lunch so we can talk about work." And the culture here is you get the business, you work and you actually get the business done, and you actually make agreements during lunch or during dinner or during social events like that. The formal points where you have a meeting and it's scheduled and you have to be there, and usually the business is not done. It's just what you do is you show that you agree with somebody or you agree with the suggestion and such. But the actual getting something done is during a meal.
Is it okay to speak your thoughts, your opinion in front of your parents?
Yeah,
Pretty much, right?
pretty much.
How about your parents? I know your parents are half Thai. Would they be able to speak their thoughts towards you and their mother? Or
Say again?
your
My children or my
They're half Thai, right?
which one? My children or have to?
Yeah.
My parents are.
No, sorry, I meant your children.
Oh, okay.
They can speak.
Oh,
their
they,
thoughts.
yeah, they could. I have no problem with them talking about what they want.
How about to their mother?
They'll get yelled at if they don't say it in a certain way. Yeah, they can't just talk about anything. Although they do still.
But they're more open towards you, right?
It's hard to tell. I don't know, because what they talk about to my wife is in Thai.
Okay.
So I not necessarily
Your Thai is
understand it
pretty
or
good.
not. It's okay. Sometimes I think they talk about me in Thai, or sometimes I think they talk about some different emotions in Thai. But I don't know. We talk a lot.
When you don't like something, are you more direct or indirect?
Usually indirect.
Is that because you've been in Thailand for a while?
Probably. I'm from Colorado, and actually the rules are a lot the same as it is in Thailand about don't say no. Maybe don't want to offend somebody by just saying that's stupid or that's idiotic or something like that. Kind of be a little bit more general about it.
Do people from America and Thailand communicate differently while working?
Oh yeah. Yes. You have to give me an instance of what you want.
Okay, let's say this is a workplace and one of the workers did something wrong, like a typo. How would the communication?
Yeah, most of the Americans like, that's stupid. Why did you do that? Yeah, a lot more aggressive. Some workplaces they cuss quite a lot, or they're very aggressive language. In Thailand, I've had arguments. I've had somebody from the U.S. I had an argument with one of the managers here, and it was like a really vicious argument. And then after it, I had a friend that was watching it saying, "Oh, you guys get along so nice and so pleasant." They didn't even realize like we were fighting.
Do you think the ways Thais communicate when they first see each other is nice, or how do you feel first?
I like it. The only issue I have, I like the white greeting. Most Thai, if you're up country, is very polite. Long time ago when I started over at Thammasat, the one thing that's a little bit strange for me, I usually say hello or good morning, and I'd have people that wouldn't say hello back to me, and I found out it's sort of a cultural thing, that they'd either smile or they would just like some sort of acknowledgement, but they wouldn't say good morning or hello, or for where I'm at, it'd be rude not to respond. So I had some problems like that a little bit, but most of the countries are very friendly.
But you're okay with it now, right? You're used to it.
I don't work at Thomas.
Okay. Do you think body language in America and Thailand is the same? Can you give an example?
My favorite ones when I go back home, my dad tells me, come here, like this, which is obviously, it's something a bit not polite in Thailand.
Yeah.
And then if I get some exchange students, they'll do that. They'll do the come here. It's like, don't do that. It's like kind of flipping people off, or taxi drivers will get a little angry at you if you do that.
Do you think in the entertainment industry, in both cultures, communicate in the same way to their target audience?
Yeah, definitely different there. Especially in the music industry, where some of the famous singers in the U.S. are like gangsters that are supposed to be shooting people in the head, and the language is extremely rude. In Thailand, you still got the kind of the Pete Bird model, where if you're not a good son or if you're not a good daughter, take care of your parents and be very polite and very nice. They don't do very well. Tata Young's probably the best example of it. Because as you know, she was a big superstar, but when she started looking slutty, like an American slutty kind of thing with the lyrics and the skimpy dresses, she has never been as popular since then.
Yeah, I agree with that. In America, do you use the same words in different expressions to show emotions?
Yes. Next question.
How?
What's that?
Like, give me one word, for example.
Say again?
Like, give me one example. How do you use a word in many different expressions?
Same word or different word?
Same word.
Oh. Well, just hello, 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 hello.
So basically the tone of voice, right?
The tone of voice tells you what you're saying. It actually has. Yeah, there's a lot more meaning in one word just by how you pronounce it or how you express it or your body gestures.
And it's the same for both cultures, right?
Not necessarily, because Thai is a little bit more tonal, so there's a range that you can express yourself in, but if you get outside that range, then it's not that word anymore. That's why I have problems sometimes.
Is communication in schools the same in both cultures?
No. You mean teaching or
teaching.
Students asking questions? Or?
Both. For you as a teacher, would you say it's the same?
I mainly have taught in Thailand, so I'm maybe non-standard for comparing with the U.S., but I've had students I've had American students and Australian students. I think in general, the average students to the low standard students probably are pretty much the same. I think the top level students, the one thing in the U.S. is the top level students are very, you're a good example. That's why I kept teasing you, but it's so rare. The top level students ask lots of questions and push really hard, and they want the answers, and they don't mind telling you that what you're saying is stupid, or they go at you like that. Top students in Thailand tend to not be as aggressive. They tend to be more polite. They tend not to talk. A lot of times I can't tell if I gave a student an A or a C. In the U.S., I would know which one are the top students just because they're more aggressive and they're more active and they're more pushy. Here, I can't. I really don't see the top students sometimes.
And in your opinion, which culture would you like to teach in more?
Oh, I enjoy Thai. It's a lot more playful.
Do you like the students not to be pushy, right?
I like pushy students, but I like Thai students because they're playful, and as you know, I like to tease students a little bit, joke a little bit with them, but then I try not to be in a mean way. I think in the U.S. you got teachers that tend to do that, but they tend to kind of bite. They be really nasty and vindictive, and it's a little bit sarcastic, and I try not to do. I maybe do that unintentionally, but I really don't like that kind of flavor, that kind of tone. The one thing about American students or like Western students is you got this need to win, and so you'll get some really students that need to be the top. And those students can be a real pain sometimes, because what usually you get is you get a B+ student. You give an A student a B+ student, and they can't accept it because they hate you for the rest of their life because you ruined their life because it's a B+. At the same time, the one thing that's really missing in Thailand is that type of student. You don't see that real drive to be the best. Passing's okay. Even the best students that maybe get an A, it's like, oh, if I get a C, oh, it's okay. It's not. It doesn't bother me. But for me, every time I've gotten a C in school, I still remember it. I'm still mad at that teacher. I still don't forgive him for it.
To end the interview today, I would like to ask you one final question, which I think is the most important one. What brought you to Thailand, and are you happy with your change, like living here instead of
I have no idea what I'm doing. I was born in Colorado. I grew up in Colorado. It's in the mountains. It's a beautiful place to live. Everybody that goes to Colorado wants to live there the rest of their life. I have no idea what I'm doing here at all. And what was the other part?
Are you happy with the change? Are you happy that you're living here?
I went back to the U.S. in 1989 and then stayed for 2 years. And I pretty much decided to come here and stay here in Thailand and live the rest of my life here already. I can't readapt to the U.S. actually. I can't fit back in. No, I like life a lot here.
Thank you for your time.
I'm a married. I told you don't want to hold my hand. Oh, how many times? No, thank you guys very much.